team, and I will let Tash and Alicia introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tash Lawag, and I'm the account clerk aide for special projects.
Hey everyone, and I'm Alicia Vela. I'm the grant specialist.
Great. Okay, we are going to get started with the roll call. Now, the roll call is incredibly important because, as you all know, this is a mandatory training. Oh, also, I do want to let you know that this is being recorded, and it's being recorded because we're going to post it on our website. Let me just go through, sorry, really quickly and just mute everybody. Okay, there we go. All right. So this is being recorded and we posted on our website. So if at any time you need to go back to what we went over and you're like, oh, what did Rosie, Alicia, and Tash say about this part of the application, you will have access to that and you can go back and look at it as a reference. We can also send you the PowerPoint slides. So that way you can just focus on listening to what we have to say, and you don't have to worry too much about documenting everything on the slides. We will be sharing that with you after the meeting. So I will go through the roll call. And again, it's very important. That way we can make sure you're here because this is going to be our proof that you attended this mandatory workshop. So I'm going to do this in alphabetical order. And then when I call your name, if you could just say present or here, just let us know that you're here. If you're not able to speak, you can at the very top of your screen, you should have an option to raise your hand. It's the third icon from the left. And you should have that option. And then that way it'll allow us to know that you're here. And then if I don't call your name at the very end, you can please share that with us. That way we can also put you down as someone who attended. So I'll start off with Joyce Ellen from Area Agency on Aging.
Hi.
All right.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. I see the hand and I see your lovely face. Thank you. All right. Emilia Mendez from Alliance for Pharmaceutical Access.
Hi, good morning here.
Good morning. All right. Okay, so I have 4 people from Boys and Girls Club. I have Roberto, Kelly, Rebecca McGinnis, and Rebecca McLaughlin.
Hi, Rose. This is Roberto.
Here, it's actually McGinnis, but that's fine. Hello.
Oh, McGinnis, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No worries.
So we have all 4 of you, right?
Rebecca McGinnis and
Correct.
And
Great.
Rebecca, I don't believe Kelly.
Oh, okay. All right. And for Catholic Charities, we also have 4 representatives: Yolanda Vasquez, Tracy Ramos, Ruth Cheryl, and Paola Oros.
Present.
Wonderful. Okay. And for child abuse listening mediation, we have Tara Connolly.
Good morning. I'm online with you all. Thanks for having us.
Good morning. All right. For the City of Santa Maria Public Works Department, we have Eric Ridio and Zoe Click.
I'm here. Eric won't be able to make it, but I'm here.
Wonderful. Thank you. For the City of Santa Maria Recreation and Parks Department, we have David Rodriguez, Teresa Mitchell, Brett Fulgoni, and Cindy Hoskins.
Good morning.
Here.
Good morning.
Good morning. For ComUnify, we have Kemba Lawrence, Natalia Alarcon, and Lynn Carlisle. I'm sorry if I butchered your last name.
No worries. I'm here. It's Carlisle.
Carlisle. Okay.
And I am here. I'm here as well. This is Kemba.
Hi, Kemba. So no Natalia, right?
No, Natalia, correct.
All right. For Community Action Partnership of San Luis Obispo, we have Jim McNamara, and I did see Jim. There you are.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Community Partners in Caring, we have Vilma Contreras, Gibar Collin, Jenny Teo, and Gian Masuko.
Hello.
Hello.
Is here.
Kibat is here.
Kibat, okay, and Vilma. And
Wilma will be, she's running a little late, but she'll be here.
okay,
Gian, Hebard, and Jenny are present for Community Partners.
Okay.
in Caring.
all right. Thank you so much. And for Domestic Violence Solutions, we have Jan Campbell and Norman Colaviencesko.
Colavincenzo.
Oh, okay.
Everyone. Nice
Good
work.
morning.
That's Italian.
I love it. It sounds, yeah. All right, Fighting Back Santa Maria Valley. I do see Edwin, and also joining us is Samantha and Wendy, right?
Wendy couldn't make it, but Samantha's here.
Wonderful, thank you. Food Bank of Santa Barbara County, Lauren Coiro.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning. Family Service Agency, I know we have Steve DeLira, but also joining us is Paul Catan, Lisa Bravo, and Nancy Johnson.
I know that Paul couldn't make it, and I think Nancy's participating in an inspection right now.
Okay, no problem. Okay, Good Samaritan Shelter, Alexis, Sylvia, Hector, and Sam.
I know that Sylvia's here, Hector's here, Sam's here. I'm not sure about Alexis. She's at a conference.
Okay. Housing Authority of the County of Santa Barbara, John Polanski.
I think John was having trouble connecting.
Okay.
But
we'll check back with him. Independent Living Resource, Jennifer Griffin and Alexa Martin.
ILRC is here.
Hi. Legal Aid Foundation of Santa Barbara County, Trisha and Jennifer.
Hello.
Hello.
Here.
New Beginnings Counseling Center, Victoria Garfield.
I'm here.
Hi.
Hi, Christine Schwartz is here too. Good morning.
Hi, Christine. All right, let me add that. MICOP, Mixteco Indigena Community Organization Project, Kelsey, Victor, and Anna.
Hi, this is Victor. I'm here.
Hello.
Present.
Is that Anna?
Yes, it is. Hi.
Oh, hi.
I'm here as well, Kelsey.
Oh, hello. Okay. North County Rape Crisis, I do see Anne and Karen. Is there anybody else joining us from?
No, just Anne and Karen.
All right. The dynamic duo. I like it.
There you go.
Partners in Housing Solutions, Alice, Sarah, and Alma.
Hi there, Alice is here.
Hello.
hi, Sarah's here. Alma could not make it.
Okay. People Self-Help Housing Corporation, Forrest and Adriana.
Good morning, present.
Hello. Santa Maria Valley Meals on Wheels, Colleen Sinclair. Do we see Colleen? Oh, I see Colleen as a guest. I do see Colleen signed in. Is there anyone from SART, Sexual Assault Response Team? Okay. Slow Noir Foundation, Kim Murray.
I am here, and also David Perro, our executive director, is in attendance.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Smooth, Pearl, and Martina. I see Pearl raising her hand and Martina raising her hand as well. The Salvation Army, Alexis, Vera, and Anna.
Good morning, present.
Hi, good morning. Hi, Alexis.
Hi.
This is Adriana Maddox. I'm also joining for the Salvation Army.
Oh, hi, Adriana.
Anna is present and Vera is the meeting right now.
Okay. United Way, Carmen, Eddie, and Monica.
Monica and I are here. I don't believe Eddie is here.
Okay. And VTC Enterprises, Carrie.
Good morning, I'm here.
Hi, Carrie. Okay, I'm just circling back to Mr. John Polanski. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. We will be moving on. So here's what we can expect today. Forward slide, please. There we go. So we're going to go over the funding criteria for CDBG. Now this is going again to be pretty much a recap of what you saw in the NOFA, but we just really want to make sure that you're aware of what the criteria is for CDBG. And then the application process. Again, this is not going to be anything new to most of you, but it's still important to go over the process. And then the post-award requirements. Again, if you are receiving currently CDBG funding or have recently received CDBG funding from the City of Santa Maria, you will know what the post-award requirements are. But again, we just really want to make sure that when you're going through spending all this extra time, energy, money on applying for this funding, that you're aware of what's going to be expected of you. So moving forward, CDBG national objectives. So CDBG has 3 national objectives that it would like us to meet. We just have to meet one of the 3 when we fund any particular project, activity, program. So the first one is, and if you can show all of the items on this slide. Yeah.
Let me try again because it's only showing. Oh, there it goes.
Okay. So the 3 are benefit to low to moderate income people and or areas. The second is aids in the prevention of elimination of slums and blight. And then the third is meets a particular urgent need. And 99.9% of all of our projects, programs, activities will fall under benefiting low to moderate income people and or areas. When we're talking about meeting the national objective of eliminating slums and blight, there are so many specific things that need to happen in order to be able to do that, that most of our projects are just more easily qualified under that first national objective that you see on your screen. Also, HUD does provide us with some categories that are considered presumed benefit, which means that automatically the project qualifies because it's serving a particular group. So you can see those on your screen: abused children, battered spouses, elderly, which is 62 and above, persons with severely disabled adults, homeless, illiterate adults, and persons living with AIDS, and migrant farm workers. And those are all imposed by HUD. So our funding priorities, which were adopted back in August, are as follows, and they didn't change from last year. They continue to be the prevention of homelessness, addressing critical need, assisting at-risk youth, the elderly, and the underserved populations. Also expanding educational development opportunities, providing affordable housing, and revitalizing existing neighborhoods. Now, these priorities are in no particular order, which means that they're Just because you see a 1, 2, 3, 4 next to them doesn't mean that that's the priority that they're ranked in. That doesn't mean that, homelessness trumps affordable housing. It doesn't, it just allows us to reference, it allows us to reference the priority a little more easily. The one thing that we are prioritizing are the number 1 and 2. Those 2 will be the ones considered for CDBG public service funding. And the reason being is that it's really hard with the limited amount of money that we have under public services to be able to use our public service funding to provide affordable housing and to revitalize existing neighborhoods. It's just, I don't think in the 9 years that I've been doing this, I don't think we've been ever able to do that with our public service funding. Our public service funding, always seems to the programs and activities that are applied under public service always seem to fall under those 2 categories. So that's why we just went ahead and prioritized 1 and 2 to only be considered under CDBG public service funding. Next slide. So here's what we're expecting to get. So this is based on the numbers we received for this current fiscal year. Of course, we're always hoping we're going to get more than the previous year. And in the last 5 years, we have seen a trend that is proving favorable to seeing more money coming in every year. But to be conservative and to just, kind of hope for consistency, but and then be surprised if we get more. We're just kind of being very conservative with our estimates, and we're just sticking to what we received last year. So last year we received a little over 1.6 million. So the way that shakes out is that we're going to have about 244,000 for public services and a little over $1 million for capital projects. Next slide, please. So under public services, in addition to the HUD imposed national objective that we must meet, we also have some local criteria. So I did go over that priorities 1 and 2 will be considered for CDBG public services. Also, CDBG funding can only be used to serve Santa Maria residents. So a lot of you have offices in Santa Barbara and outside of the Santa Maria area. That's okay. But the money that we provide to you in CDBG funds must be used directly to serve Santa Maria residents. And that will be that you will be required to have documentation of that. Agencies must not provide a duplicative service, so the same service provided by another agency. Agencies must also demonstrate that funding is sought from a variety of sources. So we don't want to be your be-all end-all. We want to make sure you have diverse, some diversity in your funding, so that you're not dependent on just us to be able to provide the service. A CDBG has always been meant to augment your services, to increase the number of people served, not to not to provide the funding for your entire program or activity. The agency must also show that it has adequate staffing to manage these funds. The funds, as most of you know, are do require some level of work on the agency's part to provide the documentation necessary to receive your reimbursement. So we just want to make sure that everyone's aware that there are a few strings attached. It's great. It's a great funding source, but there are requirements that will need to be met on the agency's part. Priority will be given to agencies that have been in existence and have effectively provided services for at least 3 years. So we want to fund agencies that have already deliverables in place, that have performance measures that it can show, and not an agency that just started up and needs funding to get going. Agencies should also provide services that reduce city or other government costs. So of course, we want to be able to use our CDBG dollars for programs and services that help the community and also help the city of Santa Maria with not having to spend as many resources and time to provide those services. Of course, our staff is just not as well versed in being able to offer the many services you are all able to offer. So it's to our benefit as well as the residents' benefit to partner with our agencies that can provide services that our residents need, because you all do a much better job than we do when it comes to being able to provide certain services. And then also the agency should provide an efficient level of service at the least cost possible. So of course we want to be able to provide our funding to programs and services that will provide the most bang for our buck. So next slide, please. And John, I see you. Welcome. I'm so glad you made it. I'm sorry you had you weren't the only one, so I'm glad you were able to make it. Okay. Capital project proposals. Now, and all of you know this. I know all of you know this, but all of those who applied for capital projects, who submitted capital project proposals, are in attendance today, and no other capital project application will be accepted other than those who submitted a proposal. And this is something we started about 6 years ago, where we asked potential applicants to submit a proposal before submitting a full application. And the proposals are provided to the city council, and the city council provides its input as to what it feels are the priorities for the upcoming year. And that's just basically done so that the applicant knows who their competition is and also where they potentially fall as far as city council's recommendation, but also keep in mind too that this also goes to the Block Grants Advisory Committee. So it's just one of several tools that the committee uses to go through and decide who gets what and how much before it's presented back to the city council in April. So on your screen, there's a list of the capital project proposals for the upcoming year. Next slide, please. So for capital projects only, we do require that 3 bids are obtained, so that when you are applying for funding, we know and you know a very good idea of how much your project is going to cost. And the reason is because what we wouldn't want for you is for you to have an estimate, ask for a certain amount of money, only to find out when you actually get the bids that it's coming in a lot higher than what you expected. And now we're kind of at the point where, like, how are we going to pay for this? We want you to be able to come to us and have a really solid idea of what it is that you're going to need, because of course we want you to be able to ask for what it is that you need to be able to complete the project, instead of having to piecemeal it later or phase it. So that's why we require 3 bids. We are aware that the way things are currently in the construction world, it is getting harder and harder to find contractors who have the time to come out and give bids. We are very well aware of the situation. We will do the best we can to work with you, and while still staying true to our requirements and guidelines, and also to HUD's requirements and guidelines of obtaining bids, especially when it comes to any project that's over $100,000. So just know communication is key when you're going through this process of applying for capital funding. And we highly recommend you start now trying to get those bids for your project. Don't wait until a week before the application is due to try and line those up, because it is really difficult right now to lock down contractors because they're just so busy. There's just more work then there is enough people to be able to do this, this type of work right now. So there's just so many projects going on. Whether it's, commercial, residential, it's just, it's wild. So just FYI. At least one of the bids should come from a local contractor. Now, we are aware that sometimes some of the projects that you'll be applying for, you may not have a contractor locally that does that kind of work, and that's okay. As long as we have that documentation, as long as there's a, an explanation as to why, again, we'll work with you. We definitely encourage you to communicate with us, to talk to us along the way, let us know what's going on. It'll help us help you, and also that communication with our agencies letting us know what's going on really helps us get a better idea of what it is like what's it like out there for all of you. And then we also do, believe it or not, communicate that back to HUD and tell them, like, look, you guys need to maybe be a little easier on us, as far as, the time we need to expend the funds and the time and on all of these requirements, because it's not just a California thing. We are seeing that other states are going through similar situations. So hopefully, if enough of us kind of keep going back to HUD and pushing back a little bit, maybe HUD will make things a little less intense for all of us. Fingers crossed. For city projects, the city's purchasing guidelines should be followed, and any city engineer's estimate should be submitted rather than 3 bids. And that's just because our city process is a little more stringent, and so there are certain things that need to happen. So we're just trying to follow our city's purchasing guidelines. Next slide. Additional criteria also just for capital projects. The project readiness. How quickly can the project start? HUD really, the minute that the funds are given to the agency, HUD really wants you to start. They don't like seeing money just sitting there, and they let us know. They have different ways of letting us know. And they have, in our reporting site, there is basically a clock that starts ticking the minute that the project is inputted into the system, and then they will provide alerts to us, letting us know, and all those get reported back to HUD. So there's really no getting around it. There's really no trying to hide it. Not that we would want to, but it's all a very transparent process. So project readiness is very important, not just to maintain a good reputation with HUD, but also it just shows that we're being efficient with our funding. So shovel ready project. So the project should be shovel ready. All funding that has been secured should start to get underway about 90 days after the funding's been provided. So if your funding starts in July, by the end of the first quarter, your project should be well on its way. Money should start to be drawn, and the process should be going. Financial feasibility, how realistic is the budget? And again, that goes back to why it's important to have very solid bids, because you want to make sure that when you're applying for the funding, you're being incredibly realistic about the amount of money you're going to need for that to be able to execute that project. And then the cost efficiency, again, just like public services, we just want to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck. Is it cost efficient to provide to do this project, to provide CDBG funding to this project? What's the return on our investment? And again, just like public services, the administrative capacity, capital projects for any of those agencies that have gone through some capital CDBG funded capital projects, that it is, it can take it can be administrative burdensome to manage these funds. And on top of that, you have the prevailing wage aspect. And now there is a big push for us to really do a better job of implementing Section 3, which is they revamped the requirements of Section 3, and that's for any project that's over $200,000. And that basically, in a nutshell, just has set forth some benchmarks that we must meet, and by we I mean the contractor must meet in order to comply with this new Section 3 requirement. And so again, that's just something in addition to all the other things that an agency going after capital funding will need to be aware of, because by us imposing that on the contractor will then have to report back to the subrecipient, and the subrecipient will have to report to us. So we're all in it together. We're all impacted by it, but it is just something to be aware of. All right, next slide, please. So as I mentioned, and this, I will hand it over to Tash after this, but I did just quickly mention the additional criteria. So again, Davis-Bacon prevailing wage in Section 3, those are just 2 requirements. And I don't think that any of those who are applying for proposals over 200,000, I know you are aware of this new Section 3 requirement, or I shouldn't say new, this updated Section 3 requirement, because it's always been around, but it's an updated Section 3 requirement. But I can most definitely go into it in more detail on a one-on-one basis. I do want to reassure all those who may be impacted by this Section 3 requirement. Our staff has done an amazing job of putting together a packet, a one-page cheat sheet, forms that will all be provided to you and the contractor when the time comes, to make things as easy as possible, so that you are not, it's not as burdensome as it may seem. So we have done a lot on our end to make things as easy as possible. We will continue to do what we can on our end to make things as easy as possible. So just rest assured that you're not going to go into this, you know, on your own. We're not. We have plenty of tools that will help along the way. And also there is a training that just came through this morning that's being offered on the 28th of October. And I will send that out after the meeting. And if anybody has 2 hours to spare and wants to sit through this training, I highly recommend that you attend. I do not believe there's a cost for it. And if there is, let me know. But there are other trainings that are free that have come through for this new Section 3 requirement. But I just think it would be helpful. That way you're not just hearing it from us, you're hearing it from HUD directly. And this training on the 28th. Oh, thank you, Alicia. I think Alicia just put it on the chat. This training does have HUD representatives going over the requirements. So just putting it out there. But again, I do want to assure all those that might be impacted by this $200,000 and above Section 3 requirement that we're on it, and we will do what we can on our end to make things as easy as possible. So with that being said, I will hand it over to Tash, and she's going to go over the application process instructions. But before I do, any questions so far? All right, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. So we will dive into the application process. So applications must be submitted through Zoom Grants by 11:59 p.m. on Wednesday, December 8th. And the agency will submit a separate application for each project or program. And for public services, an agency can submit up to 2 applications for separate programs. And please take your time when reading the application instructions in Zoom Grants, so that way you can have a thorough understanding of the process. And you can also find additional instructions and resource materials in the library tab within Zoom Grants, so that is really helpful. And if you submit your application, you may still make changes to your application up to the deadline. So all changes made to your application after submittal, but before the application deadline, will automatically be saved, and there is no need to resubmit that. Okay, next slide, please. So for the application questions tab, so for the program information, this pertains to information on the proposed program or project, which would be the Santa Maria area only. And then you will define your units of service, which we will go over in the next slide. And then you'll also be able to describe your goals and measures. So you'll want to describe your short and your long-term goals, and then also your performance targets in that section. Next slide, please. Okay, so for units of service, so this number should be the overall number of Santa Maria persons or households that the agency anticipates to serve by the program. And we want you to report either persons or households. So you will decide which one you want to be reporting. And then for question 10, which is the unit of service, this would be the total number of unduplicated persons or households to be served by the overall Santa Maria program or project. And the number that you plug in here will be used to calculate the number of persons or households anticipated to be served with the use of the CDBG funding that you will be receiving. So again, just to emphasize, this is the number of persons or households that you will serve overall by the Santa Maria program. And then for 11, you will be describing the unit of service, which is other than the persons or households. So just as an example, the unit of service, it could be defined as like a bed night, a meal, counseling session, anything like that. So another example there is for one person, 20 units of service could be 20 meals. So the information that you provide here, our city staff will interpret this answer as overall the Santa Maria program will serve 300 unduplicated persons with approximately 6,000 meals. So we took the number from 10, which is 300 persons, and we multiplied that by the units of service. So just as an example, 300 persons multiplied by 20 meals is how we were able to get 6,000 meals. So that's just a little breakdown of, how we're able to calculate your units of service. So next slide, please. So we are introducing the tables tab. So this is new. So even if you've been previously funded in the past, you'll want to pay attention to this tab and this information because it will be helpful to understand what this will help us calculate. So it will assist us with calculating the percent of the annual budget of the CDBG investment and the number of required minimum CDBG individuals, households, or units of service by the project. So you will indicate either households or individuals. So you'll indicate one, and you can see the table right at the bottom of the screen there. So you will indicate households or individuals. And then for the CDBG portion of budget, this would be the amount requested on the agency's application. So you'll want to make sure that matches. And then for the annual budget for the program, this must match the total annual budget for the proposed program column reported under revenue, which is located in Zoom Grants in the program budget tab. And then for the percent of CDBG investment, this is where the table will automatically calculate this figure for you. So it does that by taking the CDBG portion of budget and then dividing that by the annual. So you can see that in the table at the bottom. And then for the annual number of persons or households served, this number must match the number you provided in question 10, which we just looked at in the previous slide. So you'll want to make sure that you plug in the correct number there. And then for the required minimum number of CDBG persons or households served will be automatically calculated by Zoom grants, and this is based upon the information. Excuse me, my throat's getting a little dry. Okay, so this is calculated by multiplying the percent of the CDB investment by the annual number of persons or households. So there's a lot of words there, but this will help you get an idea of the required minimum number of CDBG persons or households to be served by the with the CDBG funding. So it'll help you figure out the minimum number that you need to hit with that. Okay, so we'll go into the next slide. Okay, so for agency information, which would be questions 18 to 21, this is pretty self-explanatory because it pertains to the background information on the applicant, which is the agency. And if multiple applications are submitted, this should be the same for all those applications. And then with these questions, you will get the opportunity to describe in detail the services that your agency provides and how they are unique from services provided by other agencies. So this will give you the opportunity to, you know, state how your agency, you know, does things differently from others in the area that do a similar service. Okay, and then next slide, please. Okay, so for the project information, which is questions 24 and 25, this pertains to information on the proposed project. So at the very first question on the application, it's very important that you select the correct answer, which would be if your public service or capital, because this is a branching question. So only capital projects will see questions 24 and 25, which this, you know, it's a branching question, so you want to make sure that you select the correct option on the very first question, so that way you have access to these additional questions. And like I mentioned, these are for capital only, so public service agencies will not see these questions. So if you don't see these and you're a public service agency, that is great because you selected the correct option. And then Rosie or Alicia, do you have anything to add to any of the information I went over?
No, you did wonderful. Unless anybody has any questions.
Okay, great. And yes, if you have any questions on any of the slides that we just went over, feel free to raise your hand. And then from here, Alicia is going to take over budget and then some other important information.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to go over the budget tab. So the budget is for the proposed program and project only, not the agency's entire budget. And I'll go over each column on the next slide. When you're filling out your budget, just please make sure if you're receiving or if you're applying for capital, just please note that federal labor standards and Davis-Bacon will apply, so that may increase your budget. So just a friendly reminder. So here is there's two sections. There's the revenue and then there's expenses. So for column A, it's the total prior year's budget for the program. So you'll need to list all the revenue for the prior year. Column B is the total annual budget for the proposed program. And then the third column would be the CDBG portion of the proposed program. So what you're applying for will go here. So next one will be the expenses part of the budget table. it's the same as the revenue. You'll list the total prior year's budget in the first column, total annual budget for the proposed program in the second, and in the CDBG portion of the budget for the program, this is where you'll document what you're requesting for CDBG. So say you want to use, you're requesting 10,000 and you want to use 10,000 for salaries and 10,000 for supplies for a total of 20,000. So that's where you'll break it down there. And in the program budget narrative, you'll need to describe a little bit more of what you're requesting. So you can say you're requesting 10,000 for salaries for an advocate or office staff, a counselor, and then supplies. You can kind of list what exactly you're going to purchase with the funding, just so we can make sure that they're eligible expenses. And the budget program narrative is at the very bottom of the budget tab. So that's required. Something new that we added for this fiscal year. Does anyone have questions on the budget section? Jennifer has a question. Do city staff have a preference as to whether funds are used for personnel or for other things like rent, etc., or is that neutral? How is that factored into the committee decision making? Salaries just requires a lot more backup documentation, so it's just up to the agency as to how much work they want to put into the application and the grant. So that's just our recommendation, but it doesn't really play much into a factor for the committee's decision making. And it's always great to put the funding towards direct assistance to individuals. We highly encourage that as well. So, is there anything you would like to add, Rosie or Tosh, on that question?
No, I think you answered it very well. We do have another question from David, a project specific question. It says, CADA has a mentorship program for at-risk elementary school and junior high school youth. Rec and Parks wants to expand services by creating a mentorship program for at-risk youth. Is this an eligible project, or what percentage of funding needs to? So it sounds like, David, you and I can chat offline about it as far as eligibility. And but I appreciate you bringing that up, because if any of you are on this call and are wondering about a potential project you want to apply for, you want to submit an application for public services, but you're wondering if it meets the eligibility requirements imposed by HUD and our local criteria, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd much rather you reach out ahead of time. Let us walk through it. If we have any questions, we default to HUD. We reach out to our HUD rep, who's amazing and very, very responsive. And then we can at least get you an answer early on. So that way you're not going through the entire application process only to find out that it was never an eligible activity, or it, or you could have made it an eligible activity if certain other things happened, or if another agency did it other than your agency because of a conflict or whatever. There's several reasons why a project would not be eligible. And also just keep in mind that just because your project is not eligible doesn't mean that it's a bad project. It just means that under CDBG's guidelines, it may not meet the criteria, but there are plenty of amazing program services projects out there that don't fall under that CDBG category guidelines, but are incredibly, wonderful and do great work in our community. So just a few things to keep in mind, but thank you, David. Let's chat after this meeting and we can go through it all.
Okay, so for the application,
sorry, we do have one more question. Is there a requirement for spending like dual signatures? Um,
I can expand on that. I just mean
yes.
like for checks going out for use of funds. Some grants require dual signatures from 2 persons in the agency for reimbursement. I was just wondering if this would apply to that.
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Usually the person who signs the request for payment is the executive director or the, the chief financial officer. But no, we don't require 2 signatures. We will
Thank
require
you.
2 signatures in the contract,
Right.
the initial contract, but not in the request for payment.
Okay. Thank you.
So as far as technical assistance, Zoom Grants technical support can assist with any technical questions in regards to their system. But if you have any questions in regards to the actual questions that are being asked of, you can always give us a call or send us an email. So the Zoom Grants technical support information is there, and so is our information. The last slide too will have our email addresses and our direct lines. So there's that. Application review. If any application is determined to be incomplete, it will be reviewed by our application review subcommittee of our Block Grants Advisory Committee to determine whether it be accepted or rejected. What to expect if the grant is awarded. So it's very important that when applying for this grant, you are aware of what is required for the post-award requirements. So for example, we require submissions of requests for payments with all the backup documentation. So if you're submitting for salaries, we require that you provide time cards, time and attendance records documenting what you did during that time. And we'll kind of go into that briefly in the next slide. Client intake forms, quarterly reporting. So that would be the demographics of who was served during each quarter. Annual final report, which is just a statement of accomplishments, what you did with the funding throughout the year. Site monitoring through city staff and or HUD. So we can go out and monitor your files or the site at any time. And record keeping, the agency must retain its records for at least 5 years. And if you're interested to learn a little bit more or you're unfamiliar with our post-award process, we have our subrecipient training workshop and orientation video. It'll be linked in the PowerPoint, and then it's also on our city's webpage. So that's available if you'd like to take a look at and kind of scan through of what's required of this grant. So next slide, it's just if the grant is awarded, the invoices must be supported with detailed backup documentation. So this is just an example of what is required if you were to request salaries. So it requires a bit more than just for the rent. For rent, you just need to submit a copy of the lease once, and then you would submit proof of payment. So it just comes down to what the agency wants to do. In general purchases, we just have to have an invoice and a detailed list of what was purchased, and then proof of payment. And the next slide, key dates. Our applications deadline is December 8th, and the application must be submitted right before midnight at 11:59 p.m. And then once the Block Grants Advisory Committee reviews all the applications, they will conduct site visits, and that will take place between January 17th through January 26th. And typically they'll go out to the site and meet with the agency representatives. Earlier this year, we did it via Teams. So depending on how everything goes, we'll see if it'll be in person or just virtual. And then February 14th will be the first session of the Block Grants Advisory deliberations, and that's where the agencies will have another opportunity to share about their agency and the service that they're going to provide with the use of CDBG funding. And then the second session on February 17th is where the committee will deliberate and decide on who will get how much funding. And this will be a closed session, so the agencies are unable to speak at this one. And then we will create our annual action plan, and it will be available for public review from April 2nd through May 2nd, 2022, of who is proposed to have funding for the upcoming fiscal year. Then we'll conduct the public hearing, and then it'll be approved by City Council May 3rd. So that's our timeline for this funding process. And any questions can be directed to staff. There's our work group line, Rosie's contact information, my direct contact, and Tasha's. So let's see. That is it for us. So if you have any questions for us, please let us know. Rosie and Tosh, you guys have anything to add?
No, you covered it well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right. We did have an additional question in the chat, which I responded, and the question was basically is the committee being encouraged to reduce the number of grantees under public services? And the answer is that by default, because we are providing a minimum of $15,000 per subrecipient under public services, we are going to see a reduction in the number of grantees that receive public service funding. It is also something that was encouraged by HUD a few years ago, just because of the administrative cost that is associated with these public service funds. It was not cost effective to provide a very small grant to a subrecipient. So that's where we came up with the $15,000 minimum, which, because we only have a limited amount of money overall under public services, it does automatically reduce the number of subrecipients that we're able to fund on a year-to-year basis. We have one more question. Can you explain what is meant by client intake forms to be? What is meant to be? The client intake forms, those are also forms that we have put together. Any agency is more than welcome to use its own client intake form, but we provided one that captures the actual information that you will need to submit in your Exhibit B quarterly report, which is a quarterly report that shows the deliverables, that shows what, how many people you funded, and some information about those people that you funded. And that is actually information that HUD requires us to report back. The only ones that we are not required to report back on are the presumed benefit individuals that were listed earlier in one of our slides. But even that, we still have to report back the number of people that we served. So the information that's included in the client intake form includes race, ethnicity, gender, female head of household, and then their income, because CDBG is all based on serving low to moderate income people and areas. So this is a requirement. This is something that we are required to report back to HUD. It wants to see how many people were funded and a little more information about those individual people funded. So we do have the client intake form in Spanish and in English and in Spanish. So if your agency doesn't have one, you're always more than welcome to use ours. And the client intake form and all of our other forms that you will need are in our special projects webpage, which is cityofsantamaria.com/special projects, and you will find everything you need. That is going to be your go-to page for anything CDBG related with the City of Santa Maria. I hope that answers the question. And again, I want to encourage everyone to please reach out to us. No question is too big or small. No, there's no such thing as a dumb question, especially when it comes to applying for the funding, because we all know that, we all know everything you all do, and there's never going to be enough money to, to go around, and there's never going to be enough money to help all the people that need your services. So we know that you guys are incredibly busy and just really want to do the most good. So if there's anything we can do to help you in that process, please let us know. And with that, sorry we went about 7 minutes over, but I appreciate your time. Again, please reach out to us if you have any further questions. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Thank you. And thank you for posting the links in the chat.